Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. If I can pull up, for some reason there's already a bit of lag. I hope you all can see me, and I hope that you all can hear me. There we go. I can't tell if there's latency or if there's already something weird going on, but we're back. We are going to talk tropics tonight, and we are going to start slowly but surely easing our way into the recurring tropical updates because it is now May 12th, 2025, and we are getting closer and closer to the Eastern Pacific hurricane season starting up with us. And then slowly, or not slowly, but surely, right after that, we've got the Atlantic hurricane season. So let's go ahead and get started. That's not the picture that I want to get started with. I'm sorry about that. There we go. So this is it. We are looking at the Goes East satellite image, and there's a few different things I want to point out right off the jump start. First and foremost, large area of cyclonic spin right there over the southeast and eastern half of the United States. That has been a ridiculously potent system that's driven our severe weather conditions up for the Dixie Alley, southeast United States. A little bit down here in Florida, but more so a rainmaker, to tell you the truth. We didn't quite realize a ton of the severe weather activity, which I suppose is a good thing. We never really want severe weather around here. So yeah, we got some gusty winds, lots of beneficial rain, which is good. I think near Orlando and the Apopka area, we picked up anywhere between 4 to almost 8 inches in some spots. And then down here in Polk County, further off towards the east into Kissimmee and St. Cloud, between 2 to 4 inches of rain. So a solid rainmaker that put a huge dent in our drought conditions, and the Keach-Byram index has dropped several hundred units as a result of all this water, but we also did have some flooding. So that is an indicator of what we need to watch out for as we get into the hurricane season, unfortunately. Is going to be the flood potential, whether it be with the form of a sloppy tropical cyclone or, God forbid, a bona fide major hurricane. On top of that, another thing I want to point out is all the thunderstorm action that's ongoing in the monsoonal trough area of the Pacific, and our intertropical convergence zone still remains fairly sandwiched to the south. But we've also continued to see some warming across the main development region of the Atlantic Basin, and we're going to talk all about that. But first, I just want to show you really quick what we have going on with our pattern across the United States. A very interesting setup. We went from that Omega block that was making its rounds on social media to now a Rex block pattern. This is called a Rex block. You have a giant dome of ridging that extends all the way through the international border of Canada, and we have an upper low stuck underneath it. It's not moving anywhere. It's pretty much stationary, and in fact, it's been parked over Mississippi, Alabama, now slowly but surely trying to get its way up into Tennessee for the last 3 to 4 days now, to tell you the truth. Somebody let me know if I'm lagging. For some reason on this side, even though it says I have an excellent connection, it says that I'm lagging for some strange reason. Let me see something here. I just noticed something. I went ahead and redid the layers on my, let me see here. Delete this. Can I get rid of that? Am I okay with removing this and not? There we go. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm slowly but surely building new stream stuff. I got myself a stream deck through Elgato. I'm starting to build scenes in OBS, so if there are very subtle technical difficulties, I'm trying to iron them out as we move through time. So please don't fault me. Yeah, I know, I had an echo because I had 2 audio sources. That's what it was. Dark got it. I had 2 audio sources. I built a couple of different scenes, and it looks like the other 2 that I built with my singular audio source copied over to this one, so now I had 2 of them. But now we're back. Which also, by the way, if you all noticed during the last couple of live streams, I sounded very echoey. It's because I didn't even know I had this mic turned off. You can tell I've been out of the stream consistently for a while now. So we have the Rex block pattern going on, and then we're going to be watching what this next feature does as it cuts across the United States. We already have a couple of days worth of level 2 risks for the upper Midwest, lower Great Lakes, the Ohio, Mississippi valleys. But the real picture here that I want to communicate to you all for the sake of our tropical stream is this gigantic ridge. That's something I'm going to be watching very closely over the next several weeks. So here we are. This is going to be our tropical cyclone probabilities. We've all seen this before, courtesy of the European model. And you can see I have it stopped between the dates of the 26th of May and 2 June. Now, I'll go back to the beginning so we can look through now up into the 19th. And you can see across the board we have, subtle probabilities, subtle hints and whispers of tropical action. But then we start to see the Eastern Pacific really picking up steam with the progression of our next Kelvin wave that's coming through. It's not the MJO yet. We have another convectively coupled wave, which is essentially just a tropical wave, not literally one of the ones that come off of Africa, but it's a larger scale wave that moves through the equatorial regions and helps to stir the pot. That's where we saw a lot of our action last hurricane season, when it would develop during the seasonal months of, we'll say, August, even Beryl in June. Then we had September with Helene and Milton, and we had a lot of that action later on into the year out in the greater Atlantic, and so on. And then finally, by the 26th of this month, we're really seeing probabilities going all the way up to the 70-80 percentile. And then obviously, as we get into early June, that's when I do think we're going to start to see a bit more of a whisper and a signal to catch up on in the Caribbean that could try to lift towards the north. Other models are pinpointing that, as well as the passage of our actual MJO to be on the lookout for, and that's where we'll be paying attention to. You can see the same thing here in our genesis probabilities, the formation probabilities of a tropical cyclone. You go out in time and, they're not the most impressive, to tell you the truth. Oh, here we go. I have my phone playing my live stream again. I got to stop doing that. I always pull up the live stream on my phone to share the link on social media, and then I forget to close it out, and then it'll start playing in the background. So it's not the most robust signal, but it's definitely there. It's definitely worth watching. And I do think in this case, the Eastern Pacific is going to be right on schedule. And I wouldn't be surprised if we got a tropical weather outlook right on target with May 15th from the National Hurricane Center. As we switch over to our European probabilities on weathermodels.com, you can see it's not a very fun to look at signal. It's very low. Why is YouTube not receiving enough video? I must have dorked up another setting. What did I mess up now? Why am I lagging? I should not be lagging. This is so weird. But anyways, I hope that you all can still hear me loud and clear. And before we go any further, I just want to shout out Chris Mazel and thank you everybody for tuning in, those of you in the chat. We have a fairly active chat tonight, so it's great to see everybody. Please also let me know by either pressing the number 1 or just simply saying you're good or something along those lines in the chat, because for some reason now my YouTube is telling me we've got issues, and I don't know why. I haven't really changed anything. I'm going to have to go back into OBS, I guess, after this and try to configure my settings to get us back in business. Then finally, last but not least, we'll take a look at the spaghetti plots courtesy of the European model, and you can see that there are decent amount of members out there in the East Pack indicating that we could get something to try to spin up over the next week and a half, 2 weeks. There we go. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. And yeah, I have my mic turned down a little bit so that way I'm not blasting everyone's eardrums, especially since my actual Samsung mic is back on. Let me adjust that just a little bit. I'll turn the volume up ever so slightly and see if that helps. There we go. So, not a very quality signal, to tell you the truth, but it does look like if anything is going to develop out there, it is going to be in the Eastern Pacific. It is definitely going to be in the Eastern Pacific, and that's the role that enormous subtropical ridge that I showed you earlier on the satellite imagery plays. I think that is going to also lead to a few different things for us here in the Southeast, on top of possibly rerunning the drought conditions. So here is a look at our current sea surface temperature anomaly. Not a whole lot has changed since the last time I saw you all, but one of the key things I want you to pay attention to, and I'll take it zoom again, or I'll take it full screen again, is the MDR continuing to warm, particularly between 10 and 15 degrees north latitude. Right in through there, we're starting to really get rid of those cooler anomalies. Northeast Atlantic is still ripe and very warm, and the Canary Current right across the coastline of Spain, Portugal, and northwestern Africa is continuing to feed down into the main development region of the Atlantic. Because see, what's happening here, I think what's going to continue to happen as well, is you have your North Atlantic gyre. It's an enormous continuous chain of ocean circulation, We've got different portions of it as well. You got the North Atlantic current, you got the Gulf Stream current, the Canary current, and so on and so forth. And as you can see, we have a very warm pocket of waters up there near the UK, Iceland, and so on, and that's going to continue to move down towards the south into the main development region alongside our North Atlantic oscillation really weakening as we go over the next 2 to 3 weeks of the month of May. You can see here if we switch over to the OISST, which is more so satellite and buoy driven, as opposed to the previous one where they're taking legitimate scans and imagery of the water temperatures, we see a lot less of that cool signal and even warmer waters right there off the coast of Africa. So slowly but surely, and I really want us to pay close attention to this with each of our recurring tropical updates, because as we get closer to the start of the hurricane season, we may not see a whole lot of action out there. Historically speaking, that never typically happens anyways, unless you're Beryl and you want to go ahead and create an anomalous pattern for us. But as the African monsoon gets going, as well as the easterly jet kicking things off, we could continue to see extensive warming out there, or at least I should say incremental warming. Incremental warming, not necessarily extensive. We're not looking at a 2023 or a 2024, but I do think a weakening in the pattern here, driving our trade winds, as well as all the convective activity that could be coming across once we get deeper into the summertime here in the northern hemisphere. That could be a 1-2 combination to help really get rid of these cool anomalies and leave us with a cooler subtropics, a complete flip-flop. We had warmer subtropics earlier on and cooler MDR. Now we're kind of flipping the script, and we're going to watch that very closely. As you can see, we are still warming up as well. We are just about to the halfway mark, if not beyond the halfway mark, to 27 degrees Charlie in the Atlantic main development region. And the OHC is slowly but surely starting to sneak up as well. And we are already very much so loaded up in the Caribbean and the Gulf. So that goes without saying. We have a lot of ocean heat content and energy that's just been kicking it out there. And that's it. That's that. It's going to stay there, and I do think this is going to be our wild card player this hurricane season to determine if it will be primarily homegrown and close to home systems, or will we be able to get a couple of ace grinders out there that either escape up and out into the ocean or continue to propagate westward, becoming an issue for the Lesser Antilles. Here's a look at the North Atlantic oscillation per the extended range GFS ensemble, and you can see GFS not so much in love with a weakened phase of the NAO. Vastly different from that of the European model. If I switch us over here, did not mean to click on the Spire model. We'll go to the European model and take a look at the PNA. Far more extensive bout of negative indices, which would suggest our Atlantic high pressure and our wind field out there is going to be much lower. But on the same token at that, what that also suggests is we're going to have high pressure buried up against the United States. And I'll show you that on the ensembles here in a second. So now we switch over to our Euro ensembles for the United States, and you can see we have that Rex block. The Rex block is characterized by this upper low here, and you can see it's stuck underneath the ridge. Your strongest jet stream winds are back up where my first pink line is drawn right there, and as a result, we don't have any type of storm system to really pick this thing up, which is why it's been stuck for so long. Until this thing comes along. That's the next storm system that everybody's already ranting and raving about on social media, mentioning that severe weather, significant severe weather, the likes and the works and all that is going to be happening. So you can see as that next feature starts to come in, that's when we pick up. Gosh, we're just running into technical difficulties tonight. Why is my model loop not moving now? Thank you. Jeez, let me tab through. Thank you very much. What is going on tonight? So as this next positively tilted trough rapidly accelerates through the Rocky Mountains, the jet flow from that is finally going to lift this cold pocket up and away from the south and the southeast. And from there, that's when this quickly begins to intensify. Notice that it went from a positive tilt a couple panels ago by early morning Wednesday. As soon as we fast forward into early morning Thursday, We're now approaching a pretty solid negative tilt up there with a quality diffluent quadrant out ahead of it. So this is why Storm Prediction Center already has this whole area plastered for possible significant thunderstorms and that severe weather potential. A lot of folks are already saying potential outbreak level event. Once again, I haven't looked too heavily into it. I'll tell you the truth, because we're getting closer to the hurricane season, and that's what I'm primarily focusing on, especially since we're, this is not Central Florida. But, naturally, I'm going to keep you all updated on that. But the real piece that I want you to look at here is right there. Look at that enormous ball of ridging that's going to take shape over the Gulf, southern Texas, and Mexico. And the reason I bring that up is the Gulf water temperatures have already been well above average pretty much since last hurricane season. Even when Helene and Milton went through there, really didn't do a whole lot to bring those temperatures down. We can already support tropical cyclone activity in the Gulf if it weren't for weather conditions like dry air, wind shear from the subtropical jet, etc. Just if it weren't for that time of year. And if I continue through the loop, notice that ridge does not, we're lagging again. Maybe it is my internet connection, because this is absurd. My internet connection is doing something weird tonight. In fact, this page isn't reloading at all. That's not good. Yeah, I'm really experiencing some slowness in my internet tonight. That's so weird. This doesn't usually happen. And now we've lost the ensemble altogether. Are we going to come back, or what are we doing here? There we go. So as soon as I get off the stream, I'm going to figure out what the heck is going on here. So if I go all the way towards the back end of the run, this is our 12Z run. Notice we transition towards the tail end of May, and that ridge is still down there. Notice it's looking a lot more smoothed out because we're so far into the model run. But we'll stop the clock right at the old 240 range that the Euro used to go out. And if you look, that ridge is still in place, which means, unfortunately for a lot of us here in the deep south, the Florida Peninsula, we're going to be dry. We're going to be dry. We're probably going to see our brush fire conditions sneaking back up. Our drought is going to slowly but surely start to sneak in under the radar because of this area of subtropical ridging that's going to remain in place. The main reason, though, I bring that up is because we've been seeing this trend on a lot of our models. Here's the GFS ensemble showing a very prominent and high amplitude ridge that stays buried right over the Gulf all the way through to the last several days of May. This is almost the full run of the 18Z model, and you can see it isn't until the last week of May where we start to see a bit of a pattern flip once again, and we go back to a trough digging down over the East Coast. But I'll also caveat that by saying this is almost 250, 300 hours into the future, so that could change. That ridge could very well be stubborn and stick around just like it did during the second half of April, which is why our Gulf is now as warm as it is. You could even see the temperature here. I'm looking at the tropopause pressure. Essentially, what this shows is how warm or how cold the atmosphere is beneath the tropopause. And if I continue through the loop, even right off the rip, you can see right there, there's that cold pocket, that area of cyclonic spin, that upper level low that's been down there driving this pseudo-atmospheric river into us here in Florida and up the East Coast. As that evacuates and we return to high pressure, look at how deep and vibrant those red shades are down there. Just a solid ridge parked right over the Gulf, right over the Caribbean, all the way through the model run, all the way through. And even then, as we get further into the month of May, if you notice that trough extending down through the Great Lakes in the Midwest, it's not very strong. It doesn't have a whole lot of cooler air with it. It's probably let me switch us over to the winds. I want to see what the winds look like on that. It's probably not a very robust trough. Yeah, no. Very weak winds with it. In fact, it looks like it loses its jet max as it begins to move into the Appalachians through the Kentucky and Tennessee area. So yeah, you can definitely start to see the signs of summer. Summer is almost here, that is for sure. Obviously, we still have about a month to go before the calendar start of the summer, but summertime pattern is already beginning to set up. That's why we're pushing almost 95. Could try to head towards the 100-degree mark here in Central Florida, which is ridiculous. I'm not ready for 100-degree weather or 100-degree temperatures. Oh, that's good, April. Thanks for the heads up. I don't know why everything is so bogged down tonight. It's very bizarre. It's very bizarre. I'm kind of glad that we don't have too much to talk about. And I know normally I get more long-winded in these live streams, but I'm kind of holding myself back for now until I can establish that good content schedule into our hurricane season, like I've told you before. So if it seems like this is a very fast-paced stream, I promise it's intentional. I'm just trying to lay out the facts that the East Pack looks like it's going to hog the energy for now, and we're still watching the progression of our MJO. Right about here is still when I'm thinking we'll finally start to see our models showing an attempt at tropical development for the Caribbean, or maybe somewhere down in the southern Gulf, the southwest Gulf, like the Bay of Campeche. You can see our MJO does in fact come through around that time frame, and then we get it to recycle back towards Africa, the maritime continents, as we go through the second half of June. So in reality, from about the 6th or the 8th of June, I would say, all the way through to the 21st, give or take, depending other little variables that could be out there, that is when we will be ripe for something to try to develop. Last hurricane season, we had Tropical Storm Alberto form on around the 19th of June. So that's within that date range. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that as we rock through that little pink box there on the right-hand side of the chart, we get Andrea. We could also try to squeak Barry in there as well, depending on exactly what other dynamics we have in play. If we've seen a little bit more warmth build up out there, or focusing in our rising action, moisture. It does look to be very moist out there, so I don't think dry air is going to be an issue. I think the biggest thing we're going to have to watch for now are any incoming frontal systems, which those look like they're going to start to go away, which tells me our wind shear will probably start to relax as we get into the month of June, allowing for some of these homegrown sloppy systems to try to get going. Is Eastern Pennsylvania going to have a wet summer? Because we've been in a drought. Scott, I'll have to look into that for you and get back to you in another stream. Let me write that down, though, real quick, because like I said, I haven't really looked too much at the United States pattern. If you guys follow me on TikTok, you'll notice I really haven't posted on there either, because TikTok is usually where I do my United States updates, and then my YouTube channel is where I primarily look at the tropics. So I got to get back to it. Pennsylvania, wet/dry summer. So let me write that down, and I will get back to you. Daddy Shark in the chat. David, I read your article yesterday. Is this ridging a signal of Panhandle, Big Bend, Upper Gulf activity being the predominant player, or are we still in sit-and-wait mode? So to tell you the truth, Daddy Shark, I don't think that we are getting, or I don't think that we're any more so into sit-and-wait mode for the hurricane season. I think we're just about locked in with our general idea of what's going to happen. And I do still think, as you mentioned, Panhandle, Big Bend, Upper Gulf, like from Louisiana through to the west coast of Florida, I do think that that is going to hold steady, especially given our water temperature anomalies and the fact that even our long-range climate models are suggesting that we could be under enhanced high pressure through the Atlantic Basin. It's another thing I wanted to point out, too. Let's wrap up the discussion for now looking at our mid-range CFS. I'll go out over the Atlantic. And if you notice, for now, it's still fairly quiet in the Caribbean. Even the CFS is picking up on some potential cyclonic action out there in the Eastern Pacific. But then notice, as we get towards the 26th of May, and especially into the 1st of June, here's the 1st of June. Notice how much the water out there, I should say the precipitation anomalies, really start to go up as we go into the first 2 weeks of June. So again, that's when I'm pinpointing when and where we'll start to see things begin to get active. And yeah, if you look right in through here, this would suggest that we are under a fairly positive NAO as we get into the month of June. So as we go through May, notice that our Atlantic high pressure, it's all sorts of out of place. It's stretched up and down like so, in a weakened state, bullied up towards the east. We also have very, very significant frontal systems running around the apex of it, one here, and then one down here with a pretty solid cold pocket there indicated by the CFS. And so what that tells me is as we go through the month of May, we're still going to allow for some main development region warming. We're still going to allow for some warming out there. It isn't until we start getting into the month of June where you notice that we finally start to get a bit more of a sandwiched west to east Atlantic high pressure like so, which will then likely increase the easterly winds we have through the tropics, and that's when things will start getting pumped into the Caribbean and into the Gulf, southeast United States. So I do think we will be a little above average in our precipitation out there, pending what the Atlantic high pressure does for us in the southeast. Caribbean, Central America, the islands of the Lesser Antilles, the Greater Antilles, you guys are probably going to have a very rainy second half of May into the month of June, and then we'll have to continue to watch as we get closer through the end of May into June as to what the high pressure does out there. I wouldn't necessarily say there's any greater or worse chance for a hurricane to hit Long Island. We're going to have to watch. In Ethan's life, I do agree. Mr. Man JJ, hey Naz, how does the steering pattern look for this year? So, again, we're going to have to wait and see, but I'm noticing, I keep looking at this website here. Let me pull it up for you. I've been looking at this website at the suite of models courtesy of the ECMWF and the Copernicus suite of model data. And it does look like, for example, I'll just pull up this one right here. We'll just go through all of this and we'll look. For July, notice that we have higher pressure extending off towards the west here. Go to August, higher pressure really building in. September, higher pressure still holding strong. And then October, high pressure beginning to finally dissipate ever so slightly. So all in all, it does seem like our models are indicating that high pressure could stay a bit more robust over the Atlantic. We'll go ahead and look at the Copernicus model, the CS3 here. You look at June, July, August, September. And it's very interesting, too, because part of me also thinks that they're really underestimating how much warmth we're building out in the tropics. But this would also suggest that our intertropical convergence zone should stay where it needs to be to produce quality tropical cyclones. The only problem is it does look like we have the same kind of potential this year if our high pressure stays strong for that wave breaking that introduces really good bouts of dry air down into the tropics. So again, that's always the give and take with weather. On one end of the spectrum, it looks detrimental to us here in the islands in the southeast, the Gulf coastline. I almost slipped. But then at the same token, it's going to be kind of a repeat of last year to an extent. We'll have to see what everything looks like as we go through July to determine if peak season is going to get crushed again like it did last year. Some of our computer models do seem to suggest that we are going to start to see a bit more moisture begin to take shape as we go through the peak of the hurricane season. If you look at August here and then into September and then October, we start to see a bit more of the precip anomalies at normal, if not starting to sneak into the above average. And that's what I'm trying to nail down too, is why it is all of our models are pinging on primarily sinking actions for a large majority of the Atlantic. It just doesn't quite add up. I've been very, very hard at work trying to research that in the background. Because if you look, all of our models, just about every single model out here that we have in this ensemble suite is trending towards cool neutral. A lot of our ensembles, even from NOAA and CPC, are now pushing towards cool neutral. A lot of them are. I think the UK model, the UK Met Office model, the JMA, for example, right here, you look at the JMA starts to trend us back towards a La Nina as we go through the peak of the hurricane season, which is very interesting. I think the Met Office should be right up next. Yes, here is the Met Office. The Met Office also trending us towards a La Nina as we go through August, September, and then especially October, which would be exactly what happened last year. So I don't know if that's exactly what's going to happen, but it's very interesting, these wide swings that we're getting as we come out of that spring predictability issue, which if you didn't get to tune in last time, the spring predictability barrier that you hear a lot of the big brains in tropical meteorology mention is we're in the winter time over the northern hemisphere transitioning to spring. That's when a lot of different thermodynamic pieces of the northern hemisphere begin to change. We have a lot of we start to see changes in our semi-permanent pressure systems, where our high-pressure systems, our low-pressure systems set up, where the jet stream is. That'll either retrograde back north as we get deeper into spring and eventually summer, allowing for our tropics to kind of do what they're going to do without extensive outside influence. You know, I hope that makes sense. It's just during the winter time, we're very temperature driven. But then as we get closer to the summertime and we allow the tropics to do what they do, that's when we're a little bit more wind driven, if that makes sense. And that's what pretty much controls a lot of what happens around the equator. You don't have a lot of Coriolis effect. You don't have a lot of other centrifugal forces down there. So as a result, that's why you have that predictability barrier during the winter time, because we're at a different tilt per the angle of the sun. We're getting different areas of radiation on the Earth's surface and, you know, all that fun jazz. I can go on and on about that. It's been a long day, so I know I sound very scattered brain, but yeah, Eric, you're telling me. You're definitely telling me. I was looking at the heat indexes for Central Florida between now, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of this upcoming weekend, and they're already pushing towards, feels like 100 degrees outside, and I'm not here for it. I'm not here for it. So that's all she wrote. It looks like the East Pacific hurricane season is going to take off right on target. And if we do end up getting a named storm out there, it will put a bit of a damper on the Caribbean and the Gulf. So we can expect that we're not going to get very much to develop out here on our side of the woods until probably the beginning of June. I still think our real signal will start to pop up as we get closer to June. We had a little bit of excitement, and I'm sorry I keep pausing so much. It's the seltzer that I'm drinking. And I know we had a little bit of excitement with the GFS Phantom system out there that was popping up on a lot of the models. That has since gone. The GFS hasn't shown anything out there in a little bit. In fact, let's take a look at the 12Z model run, or not the 12Z, the 18Z model run, the happy hour model run together, just to see what it shows. So yeah, GFS, there you go, spinning up a weak tropical cyclone in the eastern Pacific, and then not much out there for the Caribbean. Oh, there it goes. It has a little something down there into model La La Land that then also crosses over into the eastern Pacific. Very dominant high pressure out there. If you look, the trades are definitely pushing. They're definitely pushing. If I switch over to the 850 winds, yeah, look at that. 40 knot, 850 millibar winds out there. Yeah, they're definitely strong. Definitely strong. Look at the hodograph getting pushed all the way out. So that's also not entirely conducive to tropical action. But then there you have it, even right there. There's your anticyclone, the extension of that pushing all the way into the state of Florida. So we are not going to get very much rain over the next 2 weeks. It's kind of a bummer. Kind of a big bummer. So I hope that you got your fill here in the southeast with this upper low system that came through. Go over to the blend of models and head to the southeast United States. And then I promise, I see the chat. I'll answer a couple more questions. I just want to see what this is showing. National blend of models. Yeah, look at that. Wow. Wow. Yeah, nothing. Pennsylvania, though, there's your rain. There's your rain up there for Pennsylvania. As we go over the next 2 weeks, looking to rack up at least 2 to 3 inches in some spots. Florida, over a 2-week period, trace amounts across the peninsula, unless you're down in southeast Florida. But that's about it. So we are going to dry out. Mike out there in New Orleans as well. It looks like trace amounts of rainfall out there. So it is going to get hot. It is going to get very hot. Look at that. 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees. Yep. Summer is sneaking in. Even down there in New Orleans, I'm seeing 90-degree temps. That area of ridging is really going to dominate the weather pattern. Oh, my goodness. Gosh, see, I'm still getting used to the screens. There you go. Now you can see all that warmth. And I'll go back to the precip since you all could not see that. My big old head was in the way. Gosh, that's embarrassing. There you go, though, up in Pennsylvania, showing a little bit of rainfall up there. Not a tremendous amount, but I do think this next system that's going to be coming through, that's what's going to help to start producing some rain. But then us down here, you can literally see where the ridge is. Look at that. Pay no attention to these. This area of accumulation. That's just a responsible, or that's just the system that's in there now trying to dump some rain on us. If I go to the 12-hour precip, look at this. Bam. Nothing. Nothing the entire model run. Pennsylvania, though, getting some rain. There goes the system leaving us in the south, and then after that, as we rapidly fast forward through the month of May, nothing for us down here. So that is going to be fun. And like I said, that's where my big question is, how much more is this going to warm the Gulf up? I'm very curious to see what the Gulf does over the next several weeks, or the next couple weeks, I should say, while we're underneath that ridge. Because there you go. We are still fairly warm out there. Fairly warm. So I'm curious to see what our anomalies do in the Yucatan Channel there, the Western Caribbean, and the rest of the Gulf. Might even get the Bay of Campeche to finally start to warm up too. Yep, that's what I'm saying, Daddy Shark. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Exactly what I'm thinking. We'll see. And then we'll have to watch what the rest of the Atlantic does. But alrighty, everybody, that's that. It is 8:36. I'm going to jump off the stream. Chris Mazel, thank you so much for the donation. I do sincerely appreciate it. As you can see, we're slowly getting a bit more active with our discussions here very soon after the 15th of May, and especially after this next upcoming weekend when I can finally transition off of the night side shifts on Saturday and Sunday and get back to a bit more of a consistent schedule. That is when you're going to see more recurring updates and uploads from this channel, and we'll kind of save the live streams for more, aggressive setups, more breaking news, more current events and whatnot. I don't know about it having more than 17 named storms. My gut tells me anywhere between 15 to 17 is a quality forecast for preseason. And yeah, I got to keep practicing again. I was all over the place tonight. I got to get my stream deck all fixed up. It's sitting right here. I haven't plugged it in just yet. Got my little mini stream deck. I don't need anything big because I'm not really good with this stuff, but I feel like if I'm going to go full steam ahead as we get into the hurricane season, I may as well start putzing around with all this extra equipment and try to make it work to our advantage. That's why I've got all these little fancy, look at the transitions and whatnot here. So thank you all so much for watching. Keeping us informed Friday with the local... Oh, yeah, of course, Mike. Absolutely. It's no problem at all. That's what I'm here for. So it's great to see everybody tuning into the discussions. It's been phenomenal getting to chat with everybody. Please consider nudging that like button. Consider clicking subscribe if you're brand new to the channel. Let's get this information out there. I'm going to continue to dial in my own stuff, get better at these live streams once again, because even though I've been doing them at News 6, even though I've been doing them at the chroma key for television, it's not quite the same going long-winded like we are now, especially with covering all this material here at the top. It's not just a couple slides or graphics that I put out in our link system. Yeah, I've got I put up sound panels and all that too, and I'm working on some extra lighting. Like I said, I'm going all in with this setup for this hurricane season, so we can work hard and rock this out together. So, alrighty, everybody. Dane Clement, last question. Do you think Africa waves will come off early with the Atlantic being so warm? Will they go out to sea or to Gulf this year? So, it's still early, still a little too early to mention if they're going to be curving out or going in towards the Gulf or the Caribbean. Right now, trends would suggest that if they don't build up quickly over the Atlantic MDR, they could try to push through the Lesser Antilles. And we're going to keep watching that. The Euro especially, the Euro seasonal, despite the anemic precip outlook that it has, it shows that we have that lower riding ITCZ. And I think if we keep bullying those cool anomalies northward into the subtropics, we're going to see our intertropical convergence zone, that wave train, stay at about that 10, 15-ish latitude line, as opposed to all the way up to 20 degrees last hurricane season that just kept choking the life out of all the waves. So we're getting a clearer picture. Our skill is going up in terms of the forecast, but we're not quite all the way there yet. And especially when it comes to our easterly jet and our easterly waves, the tropical waves, we got to get into the month of June to start to see that. We got to get into the month of June, see exactly how much more progression or regression we have out of the Atlantic waters, and then we'll have a better understanding of where they're going to track. We're getting close, though. It's the 12th of May, so we are right there on the horizon, guys. And with that being said, we will talk to you again very soon. Drop a comment down below in the comments section upon the conclusion of this live stream if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. If you're brand new to the channel, just recently discovered, thanks to our lovely community, our lovely audience, hitting that like button to get this back into your algorithm. We look forward to having you along for the ride as we get into the 2025 hurricane season. There's going to be plenty more information where that came from. And we'll see you again soon. I hope your Monday was wonderful and you have a great rest of the week. We'll meet again soon, possibly on Wednesday or Thursday. But until next time, this is Weather Center Nazar.